Welcome to the Winners and Losers Show. Hello, everybody. My name is Hank Thompson. I'm the host of the show. I'm going to be host of the show until all the airport televisions are turned off. Get out of there. Get that fucking CNN, Fox News, MSNBC shit off the TV. It's usually Fox News, isn't it? Isn't that what they play? How annoying is it when you go out in public once every few months like I do, and there's fucking Fox News somewhere? Get out. No. That's propaganda. Put on CNN, which is slightly more digestible propaganda because it's for the establishment of, liberals and, rich people who want to let, black people have money and women have abortions, unlike the fucking Fox News, which is fascism on the up and up. Now, obviously, Fox News will probably take issue to me saying that they're against black people having money, but they're a racist organization because they defend a racist organization. They're the mouthpiece. They're not separate from the current government. It's weird that we allow the world to think that Fox News has any legitimacy whatsoever. It doesn't. Not at all. All right, welcome to the show, guys. Hello. That's where right out of the gate with some bullshit. Thanks for finding the channel. I mean the podcast. Or the channel on YouTube, which is a podcast channel. Eventually we'll get some videos on there. Put my dumb mug on screen probably at some point. Or some other videos and stuff. But welcome. Another week. Another week on Hell Planet. Neil deGrasse Tyson's up in people's business. Hopefully I'm pulling that it's not true. Because I like that guy. But if it is true, fuck that guy. Piece of shit. I don't know. We gotta look more into that. I definitely defer judgment. This is a bias. I'm going to just confess to this, but I hold off on jumping on board with hating him until I learn more. And we should do it for everybody, I think. But, man, damn it. Fuck. Why him? Goddamn Neil. Get your fucking dick fucking penises. I mean, seriously. These things are so annoying. So that's no good. We got all kinds of stuff going on this week. Manafort and Cohen were the top two, celebs getting wrapped up in the Little Brother show. That I feel like we're watching Big Brother. There's a joke. I didn't even think it. I just thought of this. That's why it's terrible. I mean, stuff I think ahead of time is also terrible. But Little Brother, because of Trump's little mushroom penis that he's got with toadstool. No, I'm just saying we're watching reality TV. Our government and media have all become this reality TV shit show. And last week it starred Cohen and Manafort. I'm not going to dive into all that stuff. I'm glad to see Cohen blabbing and singing like the opposite of a coal mine canary, meaning a living bird. Those coal mine canaries, dead. It'd be funny if you were the guy in charge of the coal mine canary. It's got to be someone's job, but then you killed it on your way down. I don't know. Okay, maybe that wouldn't be funny. So Michael Cohen knows a lot of stuff about Trump, and he can direct the full weight and force of Mueller's FBI team and seasoned prosecutors who are getting more seasoning every day that goes by. A little salt, a little pepper, a little seasoning salt. Right on the face. I'm a parsley man myself. Is parsley a seasoning if it's fresh? Can you have fresh seasoning, or must it be dried and placed into a seasoning container? That's seasons. I'm not losing the definition. So Cohen, the seasoning prosecutors are all gaining steam, but with Cohen's direction, they're gonna. I mean, they have tons of stuff. They know so much we don't know. There's this group of people in the world. We're all glued to this story. At least I am, and if you're listening to this show, you probably are too somehow. Sorry, I'm not apologizing because it's my fault. We all need to help with this shit sucks. Fucking fuck this shit. Having to watch a government implode because it's been slowly neglecting the psychological and emotional and economical needs of its people for the last 50 or 60 years, arguably since the very inception. For people who have melanin in their skin, the country's certainly neglected them. So anyway, we're all trapped in this crap, and Cohen hopefully is they're digging up bodies, and the prosecution, the people on Mueller's team, they know a lot that we don't know. It's going to be, how it feels good, like whenever there's rare good news in this whole couple years, with when Manafort was convicted. That was a good day. when Cohen turned on Trump. Turned on, that's such a, that phrase always just triggers in my head to go, the sexual nature of the phrase to turn on. So because I'm a juvenile moron, and it just trips me up just like it did, and it just ruined this podcast. But Cohen turned on Trump. Wink. And he, that's a big deal, so some good news there. But there's going to be some days where the news is very like warm wax flowing over your balls. Just, oh, yes, more of that. No, I just mean like when a woman touches your face. I like it when a woman touches my face. Like a warm hand. It's like, oh, my God. It feels like I could feel something for a change. All right, weird. I know. I do, you know, okay. I don't think I could go to a hooker. It just, I got to know she wants to bang me. Even if she's not that, like, I got to know, it's like, no, this is like a thing I want to do, not you're paying me. I guess, I don't know. I mean, yeah, obviously in certain situations, I could probably muster up the gumption. Okay, well, saying it's never, when you see it in movies and shows, it's a very common thing. You know, we see prostitution in shows and stuff, and it should be legal, by the way. It's fucking ridiculous that we force sex workers to take so much risk and expose themselves to black market forces that can endanger themselves and endanger people, everybody throughout the whole thing. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I always relate, whenever they show the guy in the movie, and the one I'm thinking of right now is one of the Unsullied from Game of Thrones, which I've watched very closely and broken down in great detail on my YouTube channel, Suck Professor. Go have a look if you want. The one guy, one of the Unsullied, now that they've taken in over the city of Meereen, I think that's the name of the city, and so the Unsullied is this army that's run, or, you know, owned, not, well, she actually gives them their freedom, but she buys, okay, a lot of slaves in, it's a fucking weird podcast. So Khaleesi, played by Emilia Clarke. Whew, I'm glad I came up with that one. She so these guys are in the city, and some of them go to hookers, but one of them goes, I think they don't have any balls, or maybe they're you know, the timber, not just the bush, but the timber is also missing. Why did I? Okay. So, but he goes in and he lays down, and he just wants her to hold him from behind. Yeah, just hold me. Let's not get there. I always relate to the just hold me guys. I could go to a prostitute and be like, just, you be the big spoon. And, you know, don't tell me when the hour, tell me when the hour's up, but don't give me like a 10-minute warning, because that'll ruin the last 10 minutes. I want it to be a surprise. And then I'd just get anxiety about when it would end. You know, like how you have to wake up in the morning for something important, and you wake up at fucking 4 in the morning and you can't go back to sleep. So, anyway, I'm just saying I relate to the just hold me guys who go to hookers. Prostitutes, I don't know what so, all right, good times. There should be people who just specialize in that. Why do you got to do the whole gonad stuff? Just be like, hey, lay down. let you know, because that's the human touch thing that we all kind of need and don't, you know, tell ourselves we don't need, but meanwhile our DNA is, you know, melting down constantly from the lack of it. So there you go, good times. So, all right, Manafort, Cohen, big cow. We had the big cow. Fucking beautiful thing. I was at work. That's one of the things about sucks about having a job. I'm so grateful for this job, by the way. I'm really, you know, I can go on and on. But there's downsides to having jobs, which is you don't get to be on Twitter all day looking at big cows. And I missed it. I didn't get to participate in that little event, even though I looked at the pictures 8 hours after it had passed. And what a cow! Of course, there's some explainer videos, and I think this is nice. This actually made me like remember the old days when the internet wasn't so fucking horrible. You know, there was probably signs the internet was shitty from the very beginning, like when Dane Cook was good at it. What the fuck was that? That's when we should have known there was trouble with this internet. When Dane Cook was like the first guy to figure out how to use it properly. That's a tweet of mine. Sorry, source that. Is that wrong to put an idea on Twitter and then expand on it later? I don't know why that feels like such a crime. But the big cow we learned about, and then all of a sudden there's some explainer things, articles going around about cows, and there's just huge cows. They're just big, tall cows. They're taller than like a 6-foot person above, you know, like, I've been near cows, and usually I feel like even though if it was angry, like a cow could probably kick my ass, because they're just so massive. They're quite beefy, and in fact, literally, that's the source of beef. But they're all, I love a cow. I love their heads. I love those big crazy heads of theirs with their eyeballs poking out and their nostrils that are shiny. It's the best. You just feel at peace when you're near one. I just always, every time I've gotten to be near a cow, and they seem inquisitive. I have burgers for dinner tonight. I just realized. But it's okay. They're McDonald's burgers, so they're like less feelings. No, I don't believe that. Although that's probably where they'll just go. I mean, okay, I could get into how the different sources of protein. Where insect protein's probably the insects combined with lab-grown stuff is probably the solution to the meat crisis that's going to happen, especially once societies figure out that we should be eating more of it, although there's a large debate happening around that topic, which I might touch up on again another time. So the cow is awesome. I love the cow. And so they've got regular cows. That's right. They're called like Jersey something or other, and they're big. They're huge. They're big fucking things. Hard to move if they don't. Want. Like if one was dead, you'd need like 5 dudes to be like, hey, dudes, grab your cow gloves. Gotta get this cow out of my dorm room before the flies get bad. But there's just species of cows, and I think these are male steers generally, that are monsters. They're so big. They've got huge shoulders where they're like the top of their, I think that's when they measure these animals. I don't think they measure them to the top of their head because their head goes up and down a lot. But the part of their body that's always the same height is like the top of their front shoulder. I think that's how they do it. I don't know. Could be wrong. And but anyway, if the shoulder of the cow is above a 6-foot person's head, that's a big cow. And so there's like 3 or 4 cows that are like all right at the very top, and they're all within the range of about 4 centimeters of each other. And that cow that was in the photo, Knickers, is, I think it's a he. It's a he. Knickers is his name. Boy, that's a word you gotta really enunciate, isn't it? Like 3rd biggest cow in the world, or something like that, or maybe but it's up there. At this point, it doesn't matter. It's not like, I'd be disappointed if you brought Knickers to my party and instead it was supposed to be Trousers, their actual biggest cow. I'd be pretty impressed with Knickers. Who wants to ride the? See? Ooh. Okay, move on. Let's keep going. Stories we're talking about. I did have some random office observations that really are nonsense and not worth. Maybe if there's time at the end here. But we're talking about HW. We lost another one, guys. We're down 1 champion, 1 hero, 1 great American, a legend. We're down. We'll never get him back. Who's going to grab women by the ass from a wheelchair now that he's gone? Such a tragedy. Yes, you can tell by the tone of my voice that I don't really feel the way I feel that I'm saying I feel. In fact, I get disgusted. I mean, okay, first of all, standard grief disclaimer. It sucks for the family. Anybody who loses a close loved one, somewhere even not so close or whatever. Like grief and death, it's hard for within families. It's horrible. It's weird. You got to go look at their socks, and all of a sudden you got to see a whole bunch of weird shit in the closets. Whatever. Death is fucked up. It's really hard. It's really weird. It's really crazy. Even rich people have pain around death, although I still suggest they probably have it easier because it's expensive too. People dying, coffins and stuff. That's just expensive. Going a nursing home, not a nursing home. Well, those are expensive. But what's the next step of a nursing home? Funeral home. The funeral. There should be like a street in the world that's just like a baby nursery. No, where do you get pregnant? A porno theater, a baby nursery, a clinic where they help you be a baby carrier, then a hospital, then a grade school, all the high school, college, then a big office building, because that's where you go waste away your time being a coffee swilling gear in some corporation's thing. Bottom line. For 40 or 50 years, and then like a couple trips to Spain, and then a nursing home, and then the nursing home, like a bunch of flowers, and eventually the frequency of the flowers starts dying off as your friends die off, and as your kids stop caring about you as much, or come on, hurry up, lady, get out of here, I can't keep buying poinsettias, and then a nursing home, and then a funeral home, and then a crematorium, and now you're the cause of global warming. So less population, less bodies we have to burn, the better off we'll all be. All right? Good stuff. That's my solution to the climate crisis. Thank you. You can go to algore.net. So, what the hell was I talking about? I don't remember. Yeah, I don't. I tried to remember. I paused for a second there. I have no idea. I mean, I know it's about Bush, HW, his death. So yeah, grief is. I'm sorry for the family. Blah blah blah. It sucks. I'm not gonna. My judgments here are not about those personal things. My judgments here are because this guy is a politician who inserted himself into his self into our lives, and he was president. He was vice president for 8 years, then president for 4. He had a lot of influence over a lot of people's lives, and his decisions ended a lot of lives early and diminished a lot of lives before they ended. So, as I explained with John McCain, I think one of the first 1 or 2 podcasts since the relaunch this year, we should scrutinize politicians. It's so gross to watch the media respond to the death of these big names in politics with instant myth-making. They might in passing say, oh, man had flaws, but don't we all? But he was such a proud American man. He had so many wonderful things to offer. And I suppose there's probably just this, well, first of all, it's easy to hide behind dead people because you seem like an asshole when you criticize the dead or when you make jokes about the dead, like I am seeming right now. I get it. I understand. People are sensitive about it, especially in underdeveloped America where we don't approach death with any form of rationality, where we, pay and spend and do all sorts of insane interventions for people in their last 6 months of life. We do everything we can to avoid helping people die in a safe, sane, rational, agreed upon way. Instead the insurance companies and the hospitals are pumping money out of you because the government's paying for that stuff, usually with Medicaid if you're over 65. Sorry, Medicare if you're over 65, Medicaid if you're impoverished, and that's a lot of people over 65 are impoverished. And but we don't have a healthy, rational approach to death. So when deaths happen, we all freak out. And one of those shades of the freak out is how the media will then use deaths of high profile political figures to instantly rewrite history and paper over the parts that should be talked about while buttressing the myth that America is led by decent people. It's not. It's not. Some are better than others, but we're not talking about a group of real great folks here. Almost by definition, the American president is going to be a horrible person. They're going to hurt someone. I can imagine a innocent society. That's a weird phrasing. I'm not sure quite what that means, but where we don't have a legacy of terrible racism and terrible oppression and apartheid and white supremacy and sexism and patriarchy, not to mention all the wars of aggression and the hegemony that we impose not just on our nearby neighbors in the Western Hemisphere, but all over the world. If we just had a decent society, my reaction would probably be different to this, or we would describe the presidency differently. But this case, that's why I'd be very curious to see how a really progressive president behaves from a foreign policy and just from this standpoint, because like if Bernie Sanders becomes president or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's still got a few years. She's not 35 yet, but I think we'll see her up there at some point. 2024 at the very earliest, more than likely in the 2030s. Although I really like what I see from her. I'm happy to see what she's doing with Twitter and kind of revealing some of the. Today she was tweeting about how people in Washington, she went to a late night dive bar, and like the staff there were working at the bar. She chatted with them. A lot of them were working for the Senate and the House during the day. They needed to work this night job. And so she was tweeting about how it's ridiculous that they give themselves living wages, but then they rely on all this labor from people that's free. And that's a larger problem within the corporate world unpaid internships, forces either people to make tremendous sacrifices in order to take those jobs, quote unquote jobs, where they don't get paid for the experience and the exposure and the opportunity. Or the other factor there is that only people who are independently wealthy can access those things. And when you're talking about the halls of power, like an internship in Washington is generally how a lot of people get started in that industry. If you're thinking of it like The Sims, you pick, I'm going to be an actor. You ever play The Sims with a funny? And then you could pick a career path, and one of them was like politician. And so actor, his first job would be waiter, but a career path for a politician would be, her first job would be intern. It's a starter thing. So Ocasio-Cortez is tweeting with that, which is not something you see other people do in the from that realm. They wouldn't want to, because that rankles people in her party, the Pelosi's. And I saw a thing about Schumer posted a job ad for an unpaid internship that would be like a pretty important role with social media marketing or some public related blah blah blah. They got lots of positions and stuff. So good for her. I'm glad to see that. So hopefully she'll be president someday. I'm saying that now. After she develops a legislative record, she'll develop more of a, or will be able to assess that differently, and it'll probably piss people off, especially those who play the fucking purity game, which is ridiculous. You can purity yourself right out of power, you fucking morons. So, sorry, I got some sound to play. This is the chode licking that H.W. Bush has gotten since he died. One's from VP Biden. Ex-VP Biden. Let's just take a listen to this. He's being nice. I mean, this is good stuff here. Don't speak ill of the dead unless they're a fucking politician and a former president. But here's Joe Biden.
We were on opposite sides of the political fence. I served the entire time.
Okay, hold on. Why the fuck are we allowing them to say they served? Who are they serving? They're not sacrificing. These people get massive profiles, huge status, enormous opportunities. They get their asses kissed. Everybody laughs at their jokes because they're powerful, just like when your boss makes a joke and everybody goes, ha, yeah. This guy, I really don't like the idea that politicians call themselves service. I'll take that military people say they serve. They're serving something. They're serving. They're putting their lives in line. There's actual risk in most of that, or in some of that. A lot of that, like some people have desk jobs where it's less risky than the guys with the jump out of, helicopters and stuff. But this whole notion that these people put in service, come on, get the hell out of here. This is bullshit. That's completely unrelated to George W. Bush or H.W.'s death.
He was president. I've been there with 8 presidents and as an elected official, and none had more class.
Here comes David Copperfield.
And a greater sense of decency than President Bush. We went through...
Oh, yeah, applaud. Fuck that decency. He was horrible to gay people about the AIDS crisis. He just looked the other way, didn't do shit about it. He was terrible. There's all kinds of things to dislike about Bush. He was better than Reagan, better than his son. In fact, I would even suggest his worst contribution to the world is George W. Bush, is his child. We have this ridiculous legacy family thing here in America. I don't like it on the left. I don't like it on the right. I don't want people's children becoming powerful simply because of who they were squirted out of way back when. It's absurd. All right, here's a little bit more from Biden.
He said, I just came to welcome you to Houston.
Ooh, glad he finished that sentence, huh?
And to tell you how badly I feel about Bo. Oh. He was an incredible young man.
All right, well, I feel bad now. He's talking about his kid that died. Joe Biden had a son, Bo, who died. Seemed like a nice guy. And made a cum joke. All right, we'll move on from that one. So here's James Baker, the former chief of staff to President H.W. Bush, and he also played some roles in the Reagan presidency, obviously, and he was a pretty prominent guy around. I actually kind of was surprised to see he's still alive. He's very old. It seemed like he was ancient back when I remember him being around, and of course I was younger then, so everybody seemed ancient at that point. But
you were there for his last words, which were to his oldest son, President George W. Bush. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, then later on, as it became obvious that he was probably going to pass that evening, they got all the kids on the phone. When somebody's passing away, the last sense that goes is the hearing, and they can hear things. So they got the kids on the phone, and each one of them spoke.
I always thought it was balance
To him, and he spoke back or mumbled back anyway. And then they got 43 on the phone, and 43 said, "I love you, Dad, and I just want to, and I'll see you in heaven." And 41 said, "I love you too." And those were the last words that he ever spoke.
All right, that's nice. That's a sweet moment. Okay, I hope I see my dad in heaven too. Dad heaven. Heaven's so funny. Is it really forever? What? All right, I know. Okay. All right, so that's fine. George W. Bush wasn't there. Maybe he had a painting to work on or something, but, he was on the phone. Maybe they Skyped. It'd be funny if the quote was, "I love you." Wait, hold on. You're breaking up. Can you hear me now? Is that better? When people go, when your signal gets screwy and then you go, "Okay, is it better now?" The only answer is, "We'll see. We haven't talked much yet. How do I know if it's better?" You can kind of tell pretty quickly, though. All right, here's another one. Here we go. Oh, this is the shit. All right, this is the fucking stuff that pisses me off. It's fine that he says he loves you to his kids. That's fine. You're supposed to say it at the end. Shouldn't we all be lucky enough to have our final moments be with our children who tell us they love us? That's why I hope by the time I'm old that I have, invent talking plants, because that's all I'm going to be surrounded by. Maybe a fish tank or two. And my one nice nephew. I mean, they're all nice, but there's one that seems like he'd probably show up because he'll be like, in his 50s or something. Hopefully I die old. But then he'll be there and he'll be like, he's a sensitive one, That's why I relate to him. He seems like he's sensitive. If I knew a guy didn't have anybody, I'd be like, all right, I'll go. Fucking someone's got to bury that shit. Maybe he's got a cigar collection I can sell on eBay or something weird. All right, so here's more of James Baker.
George Bush was perhaps the most kind and considerate person I've ever known in my life. If he invited you over for a drink or something, you'd be sitting there, or a lot of people sitting there, well.
Whoa! It feels like I'm in the room with him.
Below his his rank in life.
Oh, he was nice to people that were below him. Oh my God! What an angel! Hold on, I gotta put the microphone away from him now. He was nice to people below his rank at his own home. He didn't go, get your fucking feet off my floor, you fucking poor. Tie that bow tie tighter, you waiter. They all had catered food.
His rank in life, and
I rewound that a little bit.
He'd be passing the hors d'oeuvres.
What?
He'd get up, he'd pass, he'd fix the drinks. I mean, he's just very thoughtful.
What? He would fix drinks and pass hors d'oeuvres. What a true gentleman. I've met so many thoughtful bartenders for being so. Oh, thank you for being so thoughtful, for opening that Miller Lite for me. Oh, here's $1 for that. I understand tipping, like mixed drinks, even the easy ones, but like if you actually have to like vermouth and fucking caps and stuff, like $1 for opening a beer, kiss my ass. All right, let's keep going.
Person, and he and Barbara, frankly, were the last people other than her family
to smile at a poor person.
To see my first wife alive when she died of cancer at the early age of 30.
Boy, I mean, I'm in some fucking touchy territory, aren't I?
They came to the hospital a day or two before she died.
All right,
You've had
because they wanted to.
Well, they're all friends. I mean, that's good. It's nice that they came. I'm not knocking them showing up at his wife's hospital. That's great. But the point I'm getting at is Biden's on the other side of the Bushes, but he's very much an old school establishment Democrat. They're all buddies. This is all together. They're all part of the same group. In fact, I've got some information about Baker and Bush as business partners. They were both partners with the Carlyle Group, which is a defense consulting firm that made shit tons of money off of war. And so, and these guys are big, powerful American diplomats, statesmen, presidents, secretaries of state, and they retire from government, and off they go into making money off death and destruction and chaos, and peace would be the worst thing to happen to them. And shame on us for having a society and a government where we allow that to be a thing. We'll get to that a little bit later, I think. Hopefully. And we got some. Oh yeah, we got some billionaire talk to do. I'm going to get to the numbers, and I also want to shit on Obama for being an oil country. He came out bragging about turning America into the world's #1 oil producing nation. Way to go! That's the change I was voting for. I'm tired of okay. I'm jumping ahead. So Baker and Bush were all friends. Okay, one final thing about civility, because as you guys can tell, civility's out the window. As is evidenced by me, by the way. I'm the problem. Here we go.
There are people out there saying that the death of your friend marks the end of an era of civility in politics, an era of personal.
An era when people in marginalized communities were reported on by the media at all, so we didn't get to actually observe the ways that they were punished and abused by the leadership of the country.
Decency, the kind that you've been talking about. Certainly things do seem uglier and rougher in Washington right now than we've seen in a long time. Do you think that era of civility in politics died on Friday also?
Well, I hope it didn't die on Friday because we badly need to bring some civility back into our public discourse and into our politics and into our discourse generally. I mean, we need to stop yelling at each other and.
No, actually, we need to start yelling at Republicans who cage children. We need to start yelling at Republicans who take away health care from people, killing tens of thousands of people. We need to start yelling at Republicans and their Democratic supporters. People, the blame is not fully on the Republican Party, but they're largely responsible for the degradation of this whole thing, especially because of Fox News and all the other ways that right-wing media is poisoning the brains of our parents and people of older generations who still trust what they hear on the radio and trust what they hear on the TV and trust what they see on the computer. We need to start being a little more vocal. The problem is not lack of civility. The problem is that terrible people have been running this place for 50 years, and we're finally figuring it out.
Friday,
I lost my place. Sorry, hold on. Sorry, I lost my place. Here we'll just pick it up from somewhere in the middle.
Bring some civility back into our public discourse and into our politics and into our discourse generally. I mean, we need to stop yelling.
We should just be killing people with policy and with terrible legislation that diminishes lives and causes the future of the habitability of the planet to be in question. What's going on is people are starting to get angry and calling names and calling people out for that source of oh, hit the wrong button. Here we go.
Each other. And start listening to each other. At least be willing to listen. You don't have to agree. But George Bush had a Congress that was totally controlled by Democrats. He had the entire time of his presidency, he had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. And look what he got.
And we still went to war.
Got done. So it can be done, and I'm just confident that with the system of checks and balances we have in this country, it's going to be done again, Jake. I think we're going to get back to it. I really do.
Yeah, well, I do think he's right. We are going to return to, quote unquote, more civil things. It is bad now. It's fucking crazy right now. Hopefully we're nearing the end of it. I mean, it's probably going to get worse. There's probably going to be weird violence when Trump finally gets, indicted or impeached or however that shakes out, or even just if he loses the election to Bernie Sanders or whoever ends up running. It's going to be a strange time. By 2 more years of this guy's chicken skin-addled brain, although honestly, if he only ate chicken skins, it'd be the best thing for his health. But whatever, the French fries and all the being pickled by his own narcissism for 2 more years and this weird warping. I mean, the presidency warps your brain. It's impossible for it not to. And this guy's mind he was coming in fucking warp 10. Now we're talking about warp 10.5. Which is impossible, according to most of the, unless you're the Borg. So, actually, I would love to join the Borg. They are very organized, and they remove their dead, just like ants do. They clean up the floor. So, all right, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. So, These guys are all in it together, though. Let's talk about the Carlyle Group. So this is an article in The Guardian written on October 31st, 2001, or published on that date. It details a lot of the ways the former powerful men like George H.W. Bush and James Baker, his Secretary of State, who you just heard, were partners in this group. I'm just going to basically read from the article. So here, let's just start at the top here. It says, it is hard to imagine an address closer to the heart of American power. The offices of the Carlyle Group are on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., midway between the White House and the Capitol building, and within a stone's throw of the headquarters of the FBI and numerous... Okay, fine. The address reflects Carlyle's position at the very center of Washington's establishment, but amid the frenetic politicking that has occupied the higher reaches of that world in recent weeks. Few have paid it much attention. Elsewhere, few have even heard of it. This is exactly the way Carlyle likes it. For 14 years now, with almost no publicity, the company has been signing up an impressive list of former politicians, including the first President Bush and his Secretary of State, James Baker, John Major, one-time World Bank treasurer, Afsaneh Mashayek, and several Southeast Asian power brokers. Very international. It's not just Americans here. And using their contacts and influence to promote the group. Among the companies Carlyle owns are those which make equipment, vehicles, and munitions for the U.S. military, and its celebrity employees have long served an ingenious dual purpose, helping encourage investments from the very wealthy while also smoothing the path for Carlyle's defense firms. So they get the sale and they get paid. They make it easy. Like, you got a former president on your board, a partner. So keeping going here. But since the start of the war on terrorism, the firm, unofficially valued at $3.5 billion, has taken on an added significance. Carlyle has become the thread which indirectly links American military policy in Afghanistan to the personal financial fortunes of its celebrity employees, not least the current president's father. Remember, George W. Bush, his dad. Like, again, you inherit your father's money, generally. And so not only was there a personal stake of money in it for HW, but his son stands to make money if his dad becomes wealthy. Back with the article. And until earlier this month, Carlyle provided another curious link to the Afghan crisis. Among the firm's multi-million dollar investors were members of the family of Osama bin Laden. All right, now, he was kind of a black sheep of his family as far as my understanding goes. He separated from them largely, and it was very large. He was from a wealthy Saudi family. I think it was 50-plus children, multiple different women. The men in that fundamentalist Islam get to be with more than one woman because they call all the shots. It's a very male-dominated interpretation of Islam. So is this... I don't even find this to be as objectionable, even though it's got that power name, Osama bin Laden. It's got the bin, you're partnering with a bin Laden. It is kind of fucked up that a former president was partners with the bin Ladens, anybody with the last name bin Laden. But, there were probably people named Hitler in 1939 that didn't have anything to do with it all. But although they weren't related to, that's a minor point. No sense hammering away on it more. More with the article here. The closest the Carlyle Group has previously come to public attention was last May when a Seoul-based employee called Peter Chung was forced to resign from his £100,000-a-year job after sending an email to friends subsequently forwarded to thousands of others boasting of his plans to, quote-unquote, boasting of his plans to, quote-unquote, fuck every hot chick in Korea over the next 2 years. Man, If I could actually do that, I'd be like, I'd give it 10 years. Why would you hurry through that if it was possible? The more business-oriented activities of Carlyle's staff have been conducted much more quietly. Really, that wasn't their primary mission? You know how Google's is do no evil or something like that, even though they fucking are. They work with foreign countries all the time to censor the internet on their behalf because they might make a couple more pennies. But what if that was their fuck every hot chick in Korea? Okay, all right. That's funny. And crude and terrible. So I apologize. Back into it. The more business-oriented activities of Carlyle's staff have been conducted much more quietly. Since it was founded in 1987 by David Rubenstein, a policy assistant in Jimmy Carter's administration, and 2 lawyer friends, the firm has been dispatching an array of former world leaders on a series of strategic networking trips. I hope this isn't boring. All right, one more, and then I'm going to get to the money shot. All right, one more paragraph. Last year, George Bush Sr. and John Major traveled to Riyadh to talk with senior Saudi businessmen. In September 2000, remember, this is the year before 9/11, in which 15 out of 19 of the hijackers were for Saudi nationals, and George Bush, the former president, is in Saudi Arabia making business deals. Carlyle hired speakers including Colin Powell and AOL Time Warner chair Steve Case to address an extravagant party at Washington's Monarch Hotel. Months later, Major joined James Baker for a function at the Lanesborough Hotel in London to explain the Florida election controversy to the wealthy attendees. These fucking rich people are all together. So here's the thing. There's a whole... Oh, yeah, one of them is... Although it's not completely revealed, they estimate that Bush was getting paid $80,000 per speech for a lot of this stuff. That's fucked up. The Clintons... not that they're the only ones, but they famously, Hillary was paid $250 a pop for 3 speeches, totaling $750 to Goldman Sachs and to firms in Wall Street. So skipping ahead, they detail some of that. Now, Carlyle partners, who include Baker and the firm's chairman Frank Carlucci, Ronald Reagan's defense secretary and a former deputy director of the CIA, own stakes that would be worth $180 million each if each partner owned an equal slice. As in many areas of its work, though, Carlyle is not obliged to reveal the details and chooses not to. So we got this secretive company. We've got these guys, these formerly powerful, well, currently, but formerly highly publicly powerful people who have influence on world affairs, and they still have connections to this whole thing, and they're just paid, and they're just funneled. They just tap themselves into like a fucking tick on a giant monster called international oligarchical global capitalism, or whatever, militarized industrial capitalism, and they just suck that blood out of that and get their own little big nut. So this guy was super wealthy, WHW, and the Bush family in general. They're already really wealthy. I mean, you see Barbara's pearls? Those aren't fucking plastic. Like every pearl you and I have ever seen, us poor people, those are real. In fact, they grew the clams in their 4th bathtub. That's right, 4 bathrooms. Have you ever heard of something so insane? I was in a house once. You ever go into like a rich house and then there's like it's just fun to find new bathrooms? Not that you get to do that very often, but I've been in a few rich people houses and like, wow, there's another one. Jeez, this one has a sliding door. Wow, oh my God. So yeah, it's so this Carlyle thing, and this is one of the small details. I remembered it from Fahrenheit 9/11, Michael Moore's movie, where he mentioned that Bush was involved with this stuff. Making money off defense. The more people, the more conflict, the more people that die, the more conflict that's out there, the more money these people make. And this is the sort of churn, the sort of underbelly of Washington, the defense industry. These guys, and they all tell themselves they're patriots. They all get together with their fucking sausage skin bellies, and they just sit there and they congratulate each other on mixing fucking drinks and bringing a person of a lower rank an hors d'oeuvre, and act like that's a fucking sign of decency while they're making money off of death and devastation and destruction. It enrages me. I would love to live in a world where James Baker, all of a sudden he's like my number one guy, enemy guy here, where George W. Bush, were the people in charge, the men, usually it's men, in charge of these things, they're the ones who should fucking die. They should pay the price. Instead, they send someone else's kid to die, lots of them. They blow up a whole bunch of people's kids. Most of them, the vast majority, had nothing to do with what's going on, had no idea it was even happening in some of the cases. And then they turn around and they set up businesses and consulting firms and all this other shit where they just make money off of it. Let's just stir up the hornet's nest and then we sell anti-hornet spray. That's kind of a perfect metaphor. Nailed it. So it's shit. It's crap. And then our media is doing everything it can to rewrite this myth making, because we have to tell ourselves all these bullshit, quote unquote, truths about America. And in some ways, I get it. I'd rather live in a nation as good as we pretend our politicians are when they die. I would love that. We just don't. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I have delusions about my own life and about my own station and whatever. We all probably have versions of that where, truths that are more or less difficult to face. But as a society, America seems to require this myth-making, because the truth of this shit, and I'm very suspicious of people claiming to know the truth, and I'm doing that right now. But is that we're not as decent as our myths pretend we are. I don't think that's to me, that's a truth that's defensible, meaning I could prove that. We just have to look at standard history and all the stories of people who were oppressed, who never got to tell their story. So this myth making is, to me, it reflects this elite class, this upper class of media and military and politician and big business and the CEO, the high executive level. These people need to congratulate themselves on how great they are, in order to obscure the fact that they're just taking advantage of a system that was set up before them that they've all benefited from because of, the station of their birth. And I'm sure some of them might have worked their way up from the dregs into it. Obama, I would even offer as an example of that. He wasn't born to wealth or money. He was born to a single mom and mixed up parenting, and he was raised largely by his grandparents in Hawaii and his mother in Kansas, and he didn't really know his father, and so different story there. But he eventually became part of this problem too. So let's just play that audio real quick. I do have more about how shitty Bush was, but we're running low on time. Mehdi Hasan, my favorite guy, who I was mentioning last week. This is an article from The Intercept. I'll just touch on these real fast, and we'll do the Obama audio. So he refers to basically the same points I'm making, although in a much more educated and formal and articulate way, that he ran a racist election campaign. You might have heard the name Willie Horton. That is Bush did that. It's this super racist advertisement. Horton, who was serving a life sentence for murder in Massachusetts, where Bush's Democratic opponent Michael Dukakis was governor, had fled a weekend furlough program and raped a Maryland woman. So this guy Willie Horton, bad guy, went off on a weekend furlough, ditched it, and then raped somebody. A notorious television ad called Weekend Passes, released by a political action committee with ties to the Bush campaign, made clear to viewers that Horton was black and his victim was white. So instead of just saying, this had no business being in a presidential campaign. This was a tragedy, and it was a sad story, but they brought up the race because they could score points with their racist base. So this is H.W. Bush in 1988 presidential bid here. So let's listen to it.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison.
I'm against the death penalty too, except in cases where people are slow to turn left. Let's just end it, or pull up a little. All right, let's keep going.
One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton...
So it's like a grainy photo of a black guy with a beard, and now there's one of a black guy being with his hands cuffed and being like led by a white cop who's like holding his elbow.
Received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend.
Okay, so on screen it says kidnapping, stabbing, raping.
Weekend.
Now it's Michael Dukakis right away on screen.
Prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
No, that must have been. I was waiting for the. I'm George H.W. Bush, and I approve this message. Didn't do it. Maybe that was before when they were supposed to do it. Why does that change anything? Because you're apparently it's supposed to be more honest because you put your fucking stamp at the end. Bullshit. So he was a racist, and he banked on it. Here's another one. He made a dishonest case for war 13 years before George W. Bush lied. This is again Mehdi Hasan. Before George W. Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction to justify his invasion and occupation of Iraq, his father made his own set of false claims to justify the aerial bombardment of that same country. The first Gulf War was an investigation by journalist Joshua Keating concluded was sold on a mountain of war propaganda. For a start, Bush told the American public that Iraq had invaded Kuwait without provocation or warning. What he omitted to mention was that the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, April Glaspie, had given an effective green light to Saddam Hussein, telling him in July 1990, a week before his invasion, quote, "We have no opinion on the Arab-Arab conflicts like your border disagreement with Kuwait." Then there's the fabrication of intelligence. Bush deployed U.S. troops to the Gulf in August 1990 and claimed he was doing so in order to assist the Saudi Arabian government in the defense of its homeland. As Scott Peterson wrote in the Christian Science... Oh, I thought that was Bush talking. I don't know what Scott Peterson sounds like. Wrote in the Christian Science Monitor in 2002, citing top-secret satellite images. Pentagon... Oh, this is quoted again. Citing top-secret satellite images, Pentagon officials estimated that up to 250,000 Iraqi troops and 1,500 tanks stood on the border, threatening the key U.S. oil supplier. Yet, when reporter Jean Hiller of the St. Petersburg Times acquired her own commercial satellite images of the border of the Saudi border, she found no signs of Iraqi forces, only an empty desert. It was a pretty serious fib, Heller told Peterson, adding that, quote, that Iraq buildup, it's in quotes, it's in brackets, was the whole justification for Bush sending troops in there, and it just didn't exist. So then he puked on the Japanese prime minister. That wasn't very cool. Here's another one from Eddie. He committed war crimes. Under Bush Sr., the U.S. dropped a whopping 88,500 tons of bombs on Iraq and Iraq-occupied Kuwait, many of which resulted in horrific civilian casualties. February 1991, for example, U.S. airstrike on an air raid shelter in the Amiri neighborhood of Baghdad killed at least 408 Iraqi civilians. Gee, why do they hate us? Gosh, what could it be? Is it our freedom? Or is it the fact that we've been blowing them up for several decades? By the way, why do they? That's just also very sort of presents a framing of us versus them, and I don't like that either. They is an oversimplification. So all kinds of stuff here. There's all sorts of. Here's another one. He refused to cooperate with a special counsel on the Iran-Contra affair, as you recall, where current NRA spokesperson Oliver North, fucking felon and a piece of shit, he and Reagan teamed up to sell missiles to Iran. These people are so fucking corrupt. It's amazing. What a embarrassing country to live in which the United States traded missiles for American hostages in Iran and used the proceeds of those arms sales to fund Contra rebels in Nicaragua. Oh, it all just worked out great, didn't it? Real smooth, real good work there, masters of the universe. Why don't we tie politician fortune to whether the world gets better? Why is that like not a thing? Hey, guess what? Employment numbers went down, wages went down. We're going to take all your money. You don't get to live a nice life. If you sign up to be in charge of this place, we have to see results. That'd be obviously a whole different society. You have to, who gets to decide what's good and what, that's kind of the thing. But instead, we just let these people get into power, do everything they can to fuck shit up, and then make money off of how they fucked everything up. And when they die, we all get to watch television and talk about how they're nice to people because they made drinks and showed up at the hospital when their friends were sick. I'm not buying it. So the arms sale. Bush was in on the arms sale. Why? Okay, so he, according to the special counsel, failed to hand over a diary containing contemporaneous notes relevant to Iran-Contra. So he was in part of that. The Bush family was also juiced into the savings and loan scandal of the 80s. That was a time where they actually put white-collar criminals in jail, although I'm sure plenty got away with their stuff. He was terrible at the war on drugs, according to his son. He groped women. This is another one we heard about. At least 8 different women have come forward with claims that the former president groped them. In most cases, they were posing for photos with him. This is a move these powerful guys like to do. I think Al Franken was accused of this, probably credibly. It wouldn't shock me too much. And that you take a picture, you put your arm around someone, your hand starts to go down the side, and now you're touching the butt. Not appropriate. Got to keep it above the butt dimple area. At most, the very top, if she starts falling over or an earthquake occurs. I feel like you're allowed to touch butts if someone's about to fall into a train, and then you can touch the butt. Although that wouldn't be the first place I'd grab to try to get someone to not be hit by a train. I'd grab their shoulder or their hand, maybe. So this woman was only 16. I was just a child, she said. The former president was 79. Bush's spokesperson offered this defense of his boss in October 2017. At age 93, President Bush has been confined to a wheelchair for roughly 5 years, so his arm falls on the lower waist of people with whom he takes pictures. Yet, as Time noted, Bush was standing upright in 2003 when he met Corey. Mehdi Hassan's final paragraph. Let me just lay this out there. Thanks, Mehdi, by the way. Everybody go Google Mehdi on the Twitter and follow him. Tell him Uncle Hank sent you. Facts matter. This is Mehdi. Facts matter. The 41st president of the United States was not the last Republican moderate or a throwback to an imagined age of conservative decency and civility. He engaged in race baiting, obstruction of justice, and war crimes. He had much more in common with the 2 Republican presidents who came after him than his current crop of fans would like us to believe. That's a good point. People are saying, and we heard that in that interview with Jake Tapper and James Baker, is this the end of civility? Did civility die with him? No, he was part of the fucking problem too. definitely not on the same order as his son George W. or everybody's terrible, evil monster Trump, this son of a bitch, who is just nothing but just oh god, I completely. So he wasn't as bad as them, but he was cut from the same cloth. He laid the conditions for them to arise and for them to become who they are, and now we have to live with this. So I agree with what Mr. Hassan is saying in this article, and so should you. So if you don't, that's cool too. Call me a cuck, and let's all just move on. Speaking of wealth and power, and there's really not a ton to say here. Oh, fuck, I have the billionaire numbers to do, and I really don't want to go too fucking. God damn it! All right, so Obama was the guest of honor. He's always he's Obama. He's going to be the top guest no matter where he goes. You got to be pretty fucking special to outshine this guy. Like Steve, the Blues Clues guy. He would do it, or Pokemon, or something like that. But Obama's doesn't get much bigger than that. So this was actually, I just learned this because I'd seen this quote, but I looked up what this event was. It was at the 25th anniversary gala for Rice University's nonpartisan, wait for it, Baker Institute for Public Policy last week, named after James Baker, the guy we were just talking about. I didn't know that this was that connected. I didn't realize he was there. So Obama's on stage talking to James Baker. This is a whole James Baker podcast. Didn't even plan on this. Isn't it amazing? What do you call Baker's dozen? The highlight of the event was a discussion between former President Barack Obama and former Secretary of State James Baker, who served in various top-level staff and cabinet positions under former Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. So I noticed they didn't mention the Carlyle Group in that little bio. Whoa, it's almost like no one ever mentions the grift, the corruption side of this whole fucking scam. That should be the first thing. And this is never going to happen, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but I don't think it would be so wrong to make politicians wear clothing that looks like NASCAR suits, NASCAR onesies, covered in the advertisements or the names of all their donors and where they get their money, where they make their money. I'd be for that. Why not? Yeah, I know it's kind of dumb, but so is everything else. So let's do it. That's not the reason I'm bringing this up. So anyway, they were talking, and this is the quote that's been pulled. We're just going to listen to it, and I'm just going to react to it. And it's enraging. I hope you're angry too. If not, it's fine. Just drink a tall glass of oil and sit back and just watch the world crumble into, horrible madness and early death. Here we go.
I was extraordinarily proud of the Paris Accords because...
remember the Paris Accords was this international commitment to do something about global warming, to cut carbon emissions. Nowhere near enough, but something. It was a start. It was a group statement. And one of the first things Trump did was pull us out of it. Too much, oh my God, what are you doing? Like everything we've all been reacting that same way every single day since the very beginning of this fucking maniac's election. But here's Trump or Obama. But it's important to note that he starts this with saying how proud he was of this environmental initiative, and then he turns to this.
Look, I know, I know we're an oil country, and we need American energy, and by the way, American energy production. You wouldn't always know it, but it went up every year I was president. And
the people start clapping like, "Oh yeah, that's a good thing." Ooh.
That whole suddenly America's like the biggest oil producer and the biggest that was me, people. I just want you to so.
Woo! He just gets a huge reaction. Oh, fuck, now it's buffering. So, I'm really proud of the work we did to address global warming. And by the way, I made it so that we can never fix this problem at all because I made America the #1 oil country. I like how he says, "Oh, now I know we're an oil country." Like he has that pronunciation of oil that is very soothing to people from Texas and oil states. He just has that kind of down-home drawl, a little bit of that. There's a little English on that word, and it's completely on purpose. I think he's authentic about it. I don't think it's completely calculating. Nobody becomes president who doesn't have an intuitive sense of how to read the room and how to be like this.
That was me, people. I just want you to. So.
Big laugh.
So.
He gives a little chuckle. He got a big. I don't think he expected a big response like that. But this is whoever's in his audience. Why would you cheer that? Like, there's geopolitical considerations with oil. You know, we are an oil economy. We're a car-based economy. Trucks and shipping, and aside from, I don't know if this is correct, but I remember reading somewhere that only about 50% of oil is used for gasoline, and the rest of it is chemicals and byproducts that are used for the chemical industry, and plastics and other things like that. Oil is very useful. Burning it as fast as we can and putting its waste into the air, choking off our ability to survive, not so smart. So to increase oil production is to lower oil prices, and Obama would have paid a political price if oil was expensive. Oil prices were remarkably stable during his presidency. There's numerous global implications for low oil prices. OPEC is less powerful. Russia is defanged when oil prices are low. There's lots of oil production in South America, coastally and on land. I mean, like, they're discovering new strikes or fields, what do they call it? Oils everywhere, resources. And for America to become the number one producing oil company, largely through fracking, which is injecting chemicals deep into the earth in order to raise the pressure to a degree that it cracks the rock that's down there, which releases the oil contained in that with different technologies that can get them out of it. Tar sands in Canada. So you build these big pipelines, and but fracking causes fucking earthquakes. And there's all sorts of political shenanigans with fracking and with pipelines. So, we had the Standing Rock protests. That was a big story a year or two ago, or three maybe. So America becoming an oil country is not something to be proud of, and it's disgusting that this fucker's bragging about it. On the immediate scale, I'd rather have cheaper gas than more expensive gas. There's just sort of an economic rationality to that. But the side effect, or the downstream effect of that, is that cheaper gas means people buy cars, or there's less incentives, so there's less pressure on your wallet, so you don't care as much if you buy about gas mileage. So when gas prices go high, they suddenly sales of cars that aren't gas guzzlers, that are more efficient, go up. So instead, we should be having reducing oil production. On a short-term basis, that might cause problems. I mean, we need to manage this thing intelligently, but simply cranking out more and doing so in a way that poisons the water table and causes earthquakes and disrupts, nature. By these fracking sites aren't low impact, even though they're doing most of the work underground. It's not something to be proud of. It's really disgusting. And this quote, you'll hear this quote in documentaries about Obama for the rest of his time and your time, and as it belongs in there. It really speaks to the insane. I don't know. What's he proud of? Billions are going to die, and trillions more will never live if humans go extinct. But we're an oil country, so good for us. Way to go, Obama. The fuck, man? It's crazy. So, all right, let's talk billionaires. Let's talk about billionaire money here real quick. So, where are we at here? About an hour in, or hour 5 or so. So this is in the context of the Amazon headquarters, which was in the news a few weeks ago, where Amazon did this weird titillation game where they were planning on building a second headquarters, and which city wants it, who's going to become the home of Amazon, because we're going to bring 50,000 jobs, and it's going to be, so all these different cities were it's whoring the right word, I'm picturing like I've never been, I've seen photos and videos of like Amsterdam, is that right? Wherever prostitution is legal in one of those, so you can go get smoke a bunch of joints and bang some, but they're like in windows, and they stand there and they kind of like move around. It must be so weird. I'm curious to see it just out of curiosity, but how do you like look at like window shop for women? I just don't understand. It's too weird. you know, you got to go on a few dates and talk about sushi and your family and shit. Like, oh yeah, my brother. Oh yeah, you went to Hawaii. Cool. All right. Well, let's go bang. But so Amazon, because of our absurd world where politicians and governments are so desperate for jobs, quote unquote, and wanting to seem like, you know, hip happening cities, they were all whoring themselves up for Amazon, making all these weird offers and concessions. Sports teams have been getting away with this for years, where they get the local government to pay for the construction of the stadium that they benefit from. That's happened a ton. In fact, there's George W. Bush was a partner with the Texas Rangers in a deal where he got like the sales tax increase on the local people in order to build the stadium for him, and then he made money off of it. So a lot of that kind of stuff goes on. Or maybe it was the Astros. It was one of the Texas baseball teams. So anyway, Amazon was doing this with all these different cities, and they finally announced where their headquarters were going, and they split it between Washington, D.C., or some suburb very close to it, and I think Brooklyn neighborhood, so New York City. 25,000 jobs at each place, and there's all these incitements, and it's mostly comes down to the state giving tax breaks and free money to these companies in order for them to bring in all these very high paid. And a lot of people are pissed. I know in New York there's a movement to push back and prevent it because it's going to displace a lot of people who live in those neighborhoods, because it's going to bring in like gentrification on steroids. Very muscular gentrification coming in here real quick when this Amazon stuff moves in. So it will bring money and jobs and tax revenue, but the process is disgusting. And one of the benefits that Bezos is getting from this is, and this guy's widely referred to as the world's richest guy. Estimates range, but it seems to be about $150 billion. And every day I've seen numbers, I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but he makes like something like $400,000 a minute, or like just some ungodly amounts of money. And it's not all liquid. It's not like he has a Scrooge McDuck vault that he swims through and he has a bunch of money. It's not like he has 150 billion in his wallet. It's not like he has that cash. It's his valuation, but it's enormous power. He bought the Washington Post for, I think, what, $250 million, but that's nothing to him. $250 million is nothing. Even if it was $5, it was something like that. It was weird. It seemed low, I guess, but that's an awful lot of money. So these guys are bigger than countries. So Bezos owns a newspaper, can purchase media outlets. He owns an enormous one, Amazon, which is a big production and streaming platform. The guy, unbelievable influence. And one of the things that they're giving him in New York is helicopter pad, aka a helipad. So the world's richest person, and if you're the world's richest person on corrupt planet Earth, that's saying a lot. I mean, you got to be a real piece of shit to be that guy, and you're still getting a fucking free helicopter pad from the government. I think it's like 100 uses, maybe it's some lease deal. There's always a few more complications and shades to these things than we realize. They don't just like drop off like an IKEA build your own helipad at his front door. Like they service it. It's a complicated thing, but he doesn't have to pay for it. But he gets the convenience, and he gets someone else to pay for it. It's nuts. The thing is, like, this is not the billionaire money, but it's not his money. Like, it's so weird to me that when we talk about billionaires and you hear about them, and I have deep anger and resentment at them. I want to be clear, like, when we're talking about rich people, like, it's not the guy who makes $400,000 a year, or the rich guy in town who's got the big house and he owns some of the businesses and he's got $10 million or $20 million or something. I'm trying to become one of those guys. I would love to make that much money, or have an annual income that is, high, over six figures. I think the stress, I know that there's been research about stress levels, and like around 75,000, you can cover most of your, you can cover your bills, you can afford a vacation or two or three, and you can still save for the future. And that sort of seems to be the threshold for where money-related stress stops being a problem. And I've never made anywhere close to 75K, so I've made a lot less. There's been years here in the last few years where I've made under 25, under 23 a year. not an easy life. Not a lot of. It's hard getting by on that. Certainly no health care. Sacrifices here and whatever. I don't know. It's not about pitying me. I'm just saying, like, wouldn't it be nice to make $75,000 a year? That would be so great. So I'm not talking about the rich dudes, like the locally rich guys that have a few, or men and women who have $4 million saved up or own a couple properties or something like that. I'm not talking about them at all. Even the ones that are a little ridiculously rich, like I think over 20 million. Honestly, over 2 million it seems to be a little absurd from what the kind of society I would design. But in this world, okay, 30 million, 40 million. Now you're starting to get a little excessive. I don't think you need that much. You'll be fine with only $29 million. But okay, fine. That's it. Bezos, $150 billion. And I'm not sure I understand what that is. I'm hoping to help people understand in a way, and I'm not sure if this will work or not, but I did a little bit of math. So get out your calculating pens and check it for me here while I go through this stuff. So I double checked it. I'm pretty sure this is correct. And I want to just go through these numbers, and I hope this makes sense. Because what I'm trying to do is put in context that's somewhat understandable how much this money really is. Because it's just so weird when I see people defend these people. Because they don't understand what this means to have this amount of wealth and this amount of power and this amount of influence. I think that's partially what's going on. We should absolutely confiscate most of it. They didn't earn it. It's not theirs. The money is in the wrong account. They stole value from the people who did the work. The people who do the work deserve more. Jeff Bezos didn't do the deliveries. Jeff Bezos didn't manufacture the products. Jeff Bezos didn't run an assembly line. Jeff Bezos didn't box up a box. Jeff Bezos didn't do any of that stuff. If he did it, he deserves it. And the system I would create for this, even given that he didn't do that work, is because he came up with the idea, because he took the risks at the beginning, because he's the founder, he should still be making more than anybody else. How about 500 million? Or 30 million, like I said before. That's a lot. I'm not saying he should be making, $90K and have a town car. Do people still have Lincoln town cars? Is that even a thing anymore? But 1.5 or 150 billion on his way to being the world's first trillionaire. I have actually heard that the real richest person, and this is not verified because he's a dictator of an oil state, is Vladimir Putin, who's just been sucking up money from his country in his weird mafia takeover of a nation that he's overseeing. And so that there's a very real possibility that Bezos loses out to Putin on this scale. And there's a lot of people who have billions and billions and tens of billions of dollars. So $150 billion. But I did the number because I did a little reading, and because these numbers do change. You get a stock price fluctuation, and he lost $5 billion. Oh, it's not. It's like, it's not like he can't make his rent payment. Okay, give me a fucking break. So this number is based on 125 billion. That's 125 followed by 9 zeros. Okay, so what would it take for our average person to make that much money? To make $125 billion. So the average lifetime earnings, and this stat I got from the Indiana Business Research Center at the Indiana University's Kelley School of Business. This is from 2009, so the number is probably a little different, hopefully higher, but the average lifetime earnings is about 1.8 million. Now, the assumption is a 40-year working career, which if you do the math, 1.8 million divided by 40 is 45,000 a year. I'm not making that much now. I'd love to. I mean, not too far from that, but that's embarrassing. I wish I was making more at my age. But, $45K a year, you're not struggling at the very bottom, but you could do with some improvement. So that shakes out to 1.8 million over a 40-year career. So it's a simple division. I mean, I'm acting like I did math. I mean, I just fucking did some simple basics. It's just easy to get confused because I'm dumb. So I decided, instead of what does it take to make 125 billion, let's just do 1% of 125 billion, which is 1.25 billion. So that's a 1, a comma, 250, and then 6 zeros. 1.25 billion divided by 1.8 million. It's pretty, what's your guess? Say it out loud. No matter where you are. If you're in public, just say it. Just fucking, no. So the answer to that is 694. That means it would take the average income of 1.8 million over a 40-year life of working. It would take 694 lifetimes to make 1% of Jeff Bezos' current worth. 1%. So to reach his full worth, to make as much as Jeff Bezos is currently valued at 125 billion. By the way, it's 150 or more, and it will change by tomorrow. To reach that full amount, you just multiply 694.694 times 100, which gives us 69,469 lifetimes. That's lifetimes. So let's put it into years. You know what a year feels like, right? You all have a birthday, or you go, fuck, I'm slightly older or a little grosser. Or maybe you're like one of those people who's like, I'm sexy at 40. I want to be one of those. That's my goal. I'm coming up on 40, and I want to be like, I want to be fuckable in my late 40s. That's like my plan. My plan. Yeah, right. Depending on if I get really good at Red Dead Redemption 2. So 69,469 lifetimes of work. Multiply that by 40. How many years? In order to make Jeff Bezos' worth, let's just do the 1% number first. So in order to make 1.25 billion, you have to work 27,788 years. That's 694.69 times 40. 27,788. Number, if you do the math yourself, it'll get somewhere close to that, because there was a couple extra, decimal point, like, 0.46 point, whatever. You got it. Yeah, it's close. It's close. I'd be a terrible teacher. Yeah, fine. I don't care, but just it looks good enough. So the full amount to make 100%, to make what Jeff Bezos, to make 125 billion, how many years would you have to work if you're making 45K a year? 2,778,760 years. Let's see. Let's do the math on that. So let's see here. It's 2 million. What year would that be? We got 2018 plus 2,778,760. I could probably do this in my brain, but I can't. It'll be year 2,780,778.
Captain's log. Stardate 5.
Hell yeah, Janeway. I interrupted it. So that's fucked up. That's insane. To make 1% of Jeff Bezos' wealth, you have to work for 30,000 years. And there's people out there who aren't billionaires who say that it's wrong to take his money. You're out of your fucking mind. It's not his money. He didn't do the work. He just owned the system that wrote the rules. He owned the politicians, not just only him, but this is how wealth protects itself. This is the Carlyle Group. This is George H.W. Bush, the former presidents, former secretaries of state, Obama bragging about oil. All these people are all connected to this. The Clintons making money from Goldman Sachs. They all get their cut. They all get their little taste. And that's why they all think that things are fine. America was already great. Remember Hillary saying that? No, it fucking wasn't. So how about, okay, I was thinking, all right, 45,000 is not that much. What's a nice number we'd all like to make? 100K, 6 figures. I think you're feeling pretty good if you're making 100K a year, right? So for 40 years, and by the way, people usually work more than 40 years. I started working when I was 13, 12 or 13. My first job was shoveling horse shit at a barn, mucking stalls. I actually really missed that job. I was scooping around horse crap, but I got to fuck around with horses, and I did I drove I got good at backing up with a trailer, like I had this lawnmower tractor thing that I would drive around with, like this little cart trailer thing on it, but I got good at backing it up. One day they had a pond, and then all of a sudden there's little toads crawling around everywhere because the frogs had reproduced, toads or whatever. And we had to step around them because we'd be smushing them with our. You couldn't not kill them though if you're walking in the mud because they're the same color as the mud. And the ladies that owned the barn were all freaking out, like, oh, fuck. I mean, I was with them on that. I was like, I don't want to step on him either. But, eventually you're just like, well, all right. I mean, life goes on. There's still plenty of toads that I know of. So let's say you're making 100K. And we'll do the math all over again here. We're not going to go through every little beat here. But so for 40 years of 100K, remember the previous average life earnings was 1.8 million. If you make 100K for 40 years, you're going to make 4 million. That's not bad. Do pretty well there. And if you invest it, maybe you'll make more, blah, blah, blah. So same thing, 4 million into 125 billion. But let's do 1% first. So 1.25 billion divided by 4 million is 312. That's 312 lifetimes of 40-year career. So 312 times 40, 12,500 years. If you're making 100K a year, it would take you 12,500 years. The year will be 14,518. 14,518. So I did that one in my head. Janeway would be proud. To make 1% of Jeff Bezos' wealth. And he's $25 billion over the number we're using right now. So it would take you a lot longer. 12,000 years. So to make what he's worth, that's 1%. To make 2%, 25,000 years. To make 3%, whatever 25,000 plus 12 is. There's no way to tell. How did it get there? You can't tell. Nobody knows. So for the full amount, to make 125 billion at 4 million over a lifetime, 100K a year for 40 years. It's actually some weird congruence, or what is this called? Kismet? I don't know what the right word is. Coincidence? 1,250,000 years. Be well over 1 million years into the future if you were making $100,000 a year to make what Jeff Bezos, less than what he's currently worth. So let's cut the crap about how these people, it's wrong to take their money. Again, we should reclaim the money they stole from their workers. They did not produce the value. Jeff Bezos is no human being is worth that much money in terms of value. It's weird to think of people in terms of money and value. But if we are going to be measuring our economic dicks by how much we're worth, there's nobody deserves $150 billion. There should be a maximum wage. There should be maximum asset value. And it should be lower than fucking shit, man. It should be like, I would be okay with 500 million, but it should be way lower than that. It should be on the order of 20 million, something like that. But that's a long way off. We need to start rethinking how we look at their wealth. It's not theirs. It's in the wrong account. The money needs to be distributed properly according to who produced the value. Value is created by effort, by combining things or providing services. Jeff Bezos didn't do any of that work. He did a lot of work, and he deserves to have tens of millions of dollars. But it's absurd that he has so much money that if you were making $100,000 a year, it would take you 1.25 million years to make what he's worth right now. And he's worth more than the numbers in that math. He's worth 150 or more. So it's just, okay, I could keep repeating myself, but I think you get the point. It's ridiculous. God, I'm glad I got through this. This has been haunting me for like 2 weeks. So I want to build a socialist utopia or something like that. A democratic socialist utopia where the economy is built around what workers deserve, not what workers are willing to tolerate. And we are living in a world built by and for people like Jeff Bezos. That's why the money's going to him. It's not his money, but it goes to him. As it does to Putin and the political leaders and the Carlyle Group board, James Baker and H.W., and George W. then, and John McCain. It goes to Meghan McCain, although a lot of John McCain's fortune came from alcohol because of his wife's ownership or partial ownership. I'm not sure exactly what the configuration is of Anheuser-Busch. We got to end this stuff. It's insane. And it doesn't mean that we all should live lives of scarcity and material deprivation. No, we should all have good stuff. We'll still make cool shit. We'll still have companies and organized groups of people innovating and producing, but we'll also value education and value kindness and value vacation and time off. Why are we working 5 days a week? What the fuck is that? Who benefits from that? The bosses, the Bezoses, the people who can take several vacations. You ever see Ivanka Trump's Instagram? They're on vacation 13 months out of the year. It's ridiculous. Last time I went on vacation, I went to see my fucking family. It's not a vacation. It's a trip home. Man, it's just like a vacation's where you go, you eat some pina coladas and you have sex on some bed that's got sheets, hopefully clean sheets on it or something. At least that's the ideal vacation. Maybe you bring in a showing of David Copperfield. By the way, let me just say this: did he really? He went with David Copperfield, which I don't think that's even that funny. It's not a good joke. There's other magicians. He could have gone with Chris. Angling for some booty. Ooh, he could have gone with here comes Pet. Here comes Pet, and don't tell her. Or I wrote these, by the way. This is why I'm not a working comedy writer. Hey, here comes Lance Bootiern. Lance Burton. I had to Google magicians. I couldn't think. The only ones I could think of were Chris Angle and Penn and Teller. I know there's a lot more. Oh, here's one. Here's a good one. Here comes David Blaine. That one kind of speaks for itself. Here comes Houdini. Here comes who these nuts belong to. Now that's his later years when he doesn't realize he's not touching a 16-year-old girl's butt, but is instead reaching out and cupping a grown man's large balls, and he can't tell. He's not sure. That's how you lose sensory inputs as you age. Gets older, like what did the guy say? Your last thing to go is your hearing, or something like that, or something. I don't know. I think it's music, actually. I think when they do studies with Alzheimer's patients, they all still, not all. I know it's not, but like they're like, look, they're still dancing. Like they've got the rhythm. The rhythm is still in them. They respond to music. It gets them up, and it's funny how our minds, certain parts fall off sooner than others, and we still have I don't know. It's interesting to me. So, the guy was a groper. Fuck him. Fuck Obama. Fuck Baker. Fuck Carlyle. Fuck them all. Fuck Bezos. By the way, I contribute to the Bezos problem. I buy from Amazon. I am struggling with feelings surrounding that, and if I ever have more money, it is. It's cheap and convenient. It's how it is. I'm working on reconciling that, but it would be fair to say I'm a hypocrite on that one. I've seen so. But doesn't mean I shouldn't advocate for a system where we have more equity and more fairness, and where people aren't just stealing from their workers' value. We need to redefine what a wage means and what your expectation is from the hour that you give to someone else. It's really like, I don't know if this is cosmic hippie bullshit or whatever, but it's life energy. Like, it's your limited resource. You have this extremely beautiful, rare, unique spark, this thing, whatever life is, we all get to sort it out for ourselves, if it's meaning, or if it's meaningful, or if it's not meaningful. And despite all my weird depression and pain and shit in my head and anxiety and stuff, I still find it incredibly wonderful to be alive. I don't go through life feeling joy much, but I can look at the world and look at the way things are, and what animals, people, the planet, nature, blah, blah, everything else. That's why it's disappointing Neil deGrasse Tyson might be one of these David Grass a lot, but it's really is wonderful that you're alive. It's such an amazing thing that all this shit was kicked off by the Big Bang 14 billion years ago, and the stars forming. There's I could go on and on, but is it really so that you can go to work and make less than you deserve, so that Jeff fucking Bezos can have enough money and influence that a state government buys him a helicopter pad? I don't think that's what the cosmos was started for. It's all somewhat arbitrary, right? Maybe that's the best we could hope for. But no, I reject that. You deserve better. It's the last thing they teach children. It's not even, they don't even teach it. That sounds like they get around to it. They think they never teach kids is how much value they have and what they deserve. They train them to be obedient workers. I'm quoting George Carlin, the only philosopher I ever care to quote. My favorite Einstein quote is, "Don't write this down." All right, guys, that's it. We're good. That's it. We did it. Got to the end here. How do you feel?
That particularly happens
shit.
in the sexual domain.
Not that guy.
I feel used and abused.
It's fun. It's a good time. So, what do you think about that, Mr. Trump? Oh, 3. He's being a little randy there. Oh, must have gotten winked at by one of the other dictators he wants to impress down at the G20 summit. So, okay, good night. It's been fun. We got to the end. As always, I am experiencing a cascade of regret. And as I'm realizing that I'm going to put this on the internet, and you're going to listen to it, not because I don't regret that you listen to it. I just think, like, I'll never be president. I can never even be a politician's husband. Like, that's how much fucking crap I've put on the internet. I'm such an embarrassment. But it's all right. You know what? Eventually, well, I don't know. Getting really into sparkling water lately. I don't understand why people hate La Croix. Honestly, it's just overpriced shit. Buy the cheap stuff. It tastes the same. Who needs the shot of grapefruit pamplemousse? Get out of here with that pamplemousse nonsense. Email the show, winners and losers podcast @gmail.com. YouTube, we don't have a URL yet. We do. It's like UCHO405. It's terrible. But if we get 100 subscribers, we can rename it. So please go and subscribe if you can. And got some great stuff planned for the show. I actually did ask a guy at work about being on the podcast, and he seemed interested. So we're going to get a sale. Everybody will be celebrating in my waterbed. Party in the waterbed. Do they still do waterbeds? I remember those. They look like they not that fun. They seem like it'd be. I would try it out. I've never slept on one or had sex on one. I mean, I've sat on them, and even then, it's just like cool. But then you try to stand up, and you're like, what? Why would I want to sleep on that? Maybe it's like, is it the womb thing? Or is that like, in The Abyss, starring TV's Ed Harris from The Truman Show, where he talks the lady into swallowing all that pink liquid, and he's like, you'll remember how to be when you were a baby, you were breathing this shit. I don't think that's how it works. I think The Abyss fucked that one up. But maybe there is something to it when you're in the water. I guess the only way of a waterbed would make sense is if you can like have like the distant muffled sound of your parents fighting. that would be and like the kind of 18 times a day you get like some nicotine injected in through your belly button. That'd be good. All right, I don't know why I'm still talking. Goodbye, everybody. I love you so much. I hope you're doing all right. And if you're not, don't worry. You'll be dead. Eventually you'll be dead. So eventually, no, you won't even be a memory, except for all this digital trash we're all leaving behind, all this disgusting litter we're having. But the good news is that everybody from now on will be leaving behind all this horrible online stuff, and no one will ever see any of it, especially after all the electricity goes out when the apocalypse starts up. And then we'll just have a few decades of solar-powered cell phones and stuff, although they probably wouldn't work, but we'll still need our cell phones so we can see pictures of our friends and family, because we don't have those printed anywhere. But we'll have solar battery chargers, and those will eventually wear out, and we'll have to consume the brains of our uncles and aunts in stews and soups, right? Okay, good night. Bye-bye.